The final day, and it is definitely getting cooler, but it's nice. It's not so cold. Still in shorts. Good morning, everyone. It is our final day out here at the lake. So by this evening, we'll be back home. It's been an important week of just relaxing, decompressing. Haven't really had any, discussions as a family, but we have definitely been able to get a lot of rest. That's what, having a Sukkot vacation is all about. But one of the things which I will certainly be thinking about throughout this final day is, are we going to be seeing a shifting of the seasons? Of course, Sukkot is the final of the fall high holidays, beginning with Rosh Hashanah and then later Yom Kippur. And it was good to be out in nature. Took a really nice drive yesterday around the area. But what is 2025, 2026 going to bring? What are we going to see in the next year, both in our world, with our ministry service, and even with our family? What are some of the things which are going to be changing in a positive way? How are we going to see the Messianic Jewish community respond to, yes, our attention right now is focused on the Trump peace plan. We're going to be hopefully seeing the release of the hostages in the next few days. We're going to see an exchange of things. We might see a different Middle East emerge. We don't know. But most especially, how are we going to respond to the rising anti-Semitism, anti-Zionism, anti-Judaism, not just from the left, but even from the right? And how many people are paying attention closely? How many people are not? So I'm going to be thinking about these things, praying about them throughout the day. And yeah, we'll just see what happens. Good afternoon. It's just past noon. So I've been doing a little bit of busy work, a little bit of editing of the Messianic Sabbath Helper, trying to get that updated edition completed sometime this fall. Working through the Bible passages in the Tanakh right now. Not a whole lot to change, but just, the standard smoothing over, taking care of grammatical fixes, that sort of thing. As I have been sorting through, when we are, of course, we're concluding the fall holidays. This typically for a lot of people, and certainly for one's cycle of the Torah readings, one's congregational involvement, this is a shifting of the seasons. So as I was walking out here to the shoreline, I was just thinking about, in very broad terms, what does the spectrum, if you like, some of the main aspects of the spectrum of the Messianic, note my terminology, sphere of influence presently look like? Well, obviously on one side of the spectrum, you've got the Messianic Jewish movement. And the Messianic Jewish movement has principally been set up to help facilitate the Messianic mission of Jewish outreach, evangelism, and Israel's solidarity. And while it's a movement which was originally set up for Messianic Jewish believers, they profess faith in Yeshua as Messiah, but they don't have to give up their Jewish heritage. It's obvious from the past several decades that there have been wide numbers of non-Jewish believers supernaturally called by the Lord to participate in the Messianic Jewish experience, our family being one of them. And while the initial carrot, or the thing which can get a lot of people involved, tends to be Jesus in the feasts, Torah study, things of that nature, eventually it does have to be, how are you going to co-labor with Jewish believers in the restoration of Israel? Now, on the other side of the spectrum, what I see kind of counterbalancing, or depending on who you're talking to, being antagonistic to the Messianic community, is, of course, the Hebrew root sector, which is a very wide world of beliefs. and a very wild world of points of view. 15 years ago, you could still use the term Hebrew roots and be talking about study of the Hebrew scriptures, Hebrew language, even Second Temple Judaism. Now it's anything but that. On the other side of the spectrum, you do see gaining more attention and gaining more ground the pronomian, or as they would more frequently pronounce it, pronomian movement. Now, the term pronomian, of course, the term antinomian means against law. Small p, pronomian, simply means pro-law. And I've commented on the pronomian movement over the years, saying that, look, it's a collection of people mainly from the one law sector, disenfranchised Hebrew rooters, some people from evangelicalism, and we need to give it a few years to continue to develop. It does seem that this is going to be a year where they do start to develop. And as I see some of the developments with pronomianism, it's going to be hard for me, at least, to think of it in any other terms than one law 2.0. And for Outreach Israel Ministries Messianic apologetics, while we're not going to be openly antagonistic toward it, you will probably not see me working with pronomianism at all. There are just too many areas I see from a lot of the voices identifying with that label where we just don't agree. Now, with that, shifting back to Messianic Judaism, in the next 5 years, as we are here, 2025, we're entering into the final quarter of the year. The next 5 years between now and the 2030s, we are going to, unfortunately, see a lot of Messianic Jewish leaders, rabbis retire. Some of them are going to pass away, and that is going to change the dynamics, certainly in North American Messianic Judaism. And our ministry, of course, we definitely believe in the Messianic mission, Jewish outreach, Jewish evangelism, standing with Israel, especially at a time like this. That doesn't always mean that we haven't had our disagreements on certain matters. When we have stressed that non-Jewish believers have to be specially called, a big part of that is, you're going to have to tolerate some things which in evangelicalism you may not have tolerated. We still, after 30 years as a family being involved in the Messianic community, issues of inclusion, equality, working together, not always what we would want it to be. So this next year will be interesting. Some of you all have noticed, especially since a Messianic Insider has gone 5 times a week, which we will be resuming on Monday. At least that's the plan, that I have gotten a lot more assertive on some issues. And I suppose that comes with being middle-aged. You've worked through a lot of things. You've, sorted through a lot of the bugs in your belief system, your personal ideology. You've certainly found what your value system is, and you're not worried as much as you were as a younger person. So this won't be my final thought before leaving the lake, but these are definitely some things which have been weighing on me today. Good afternoon, everyone. And it is afternoon, and our departure from here is soon coming. I'm going to miss some of the peace and quiet. But of all the things I've been prompted to discuss as we think about when we are in human history, as we think about Messianic theology, apologetics, as we think about what we should be doing, what we should not be doing, differences, distinctions, differing points of view, disagreements on matters of doctrine, I'd like us to come back to what the number one most important thing is for us as believers, and that is to make sure that at some point in your life as a man or woman that you have had a profound supernatural experience with the God of the universe via his son, Yeshua the Messiah. And how many people really emphasize that as the most important thing? The common faith, the common salvation we share in the Lord. Not enough. I mean, right now, especially since the tragic murder of Charlie Kirk, you've seen a lot of people talk about how, and it's not as though there isn't an element of truth to this, but they'll talk about how, the most important thing for a man is for him to understand his role as a husband and a father. The most important thing for a woman is to understand her role as a wife and a mother. And believe me, those are very important things. The family unit is something which is very important. But none of those things work out properly unless your number one identity is found in the Lord. Throughout the Messianic community, especially with the growing rise of distinction theology, you hear, the most important thing for a Messianic Jew is to stay a Jew, and the most important thing for a Gentile is to know their place and know their role. The most important thing is to know that you have salvation and that you've been redeemed of your sins. And then everything else seems to work out. Our fallenness as human beings, our need of being cleansed from sin by the work of Yeshua on the tree of sacrifice, that overrides all these other things. And how are we going to be able to properly sort through this as things get more and more complicated in our world? Because the events of this week, the Trump peace agreement, we're waiting on the release of the hostages. We're hearing rumors about other matters in the world. If you are not secure in your faith, then the insecurity you might have is going to begin to manifest itself as world events, as things get more and more uncertain, unknown. And believe me, I have my moments, but I'm a lot more stable than a lot of people I know because I place the work of Yeshua as the most important thing. Good evening. We've had a good time here this week. I have gotten a lot of rest. That does not mean that I'm 100% recharged, but I am looking forward to getting back home, to getting back into the swing of things, to restart Messianic Insider on Monday. We know that there are a lot of things happening in the world which require us all to be appealing to the Lord for answers and direction. What is the next year going to bring? Only He knows. But we do know that with everything occurring, we have to all, as believers, and certainly as members of the Messianic community, be on top of our game. We cannot just not pay attention any longer. So we'll see what happens, won't we? And here's one final shot of those catfish-infested waters.